Welcome back to the channel, bringing you the latest news from around the world. A constitutional showdown was underway, a battle not just of legal precedent but of fundamental principles that underpin the nation's governance. The stakes were incredibly high. On one side stood small businesses and individual states, diverse in their operations but united in their concern. They represented a broad spectrum of the American economy. They were fighting tooth and nail for their economic survival, facing potential ruin under the weight of tariffs they argued were both unfair and unconstitutional. Their livelihoods were on the line. On the other side, the executive branch, resolute in its defense of the policies enacted. They believed they were acting in the best interests of the nation. They were defending sweeping tariffs, arguing they were necessary to protect American industries and level the playing field in international trade. These tariffs had been imposed under the authority of President Trump, who saw them as a key tool in his America First agenda. The core issue at the heart of the dispute: could a president, invoking a national emergency, bypass the traditional role of Congress to unilaterally reshape the nation's trade policy? This was the question before the court. The United States Court of International Trade, a specialized body tasked with resolving trade disputes, delivered a bombshell ruling that reverberated through the business world. The court found that President Trump had overstepped his authority, exceeding the bounds of executive power. Specifically, the court determined that the administration's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, was unlawful in this context. The court clarified that IEPA was intended for genuine national security crises, situations posing an imminent threat to the country. It was not, the court stated, a tool to be used to address trade deficits, regardless of their size or perceived impact. The administration swiftly vowed to appeal the decision, signaling their determination to continue the fight. They defended their actions, calling the court's decision a direct threat to national security, arguing that it weakened the president's ability to protect the country's interests. They also asserted that the ruling undermined economic sovereignty, limiting the nation's ability to control its own trade policies. Initially, markets surged on the news of the court's decision, reflecting investor optimism. However, this initial euphoria was tempered by a return of uncertainty as the legal battle continued, casting a shadow over the economic outlook. For companies like Learning Resources Incorporated, who had been directly affected by the tariffs, the victory felt very real, a tangible relief from the financial strain they had been under. But it was also undeniably fragile. The rules of the game could change again with the next court decision, leaving businesses in a state of constant uncertainty about the future. The legal journey, a complex and closely watched saga, began in the United States Court of International Trade. This specialized court, dedicated to resolving disputes related to international trade and customs, became the initial battleground for challenging the legality of the tariffs. After careful consideration of the arguments presented, the court ruled the tariffs illegal, finding that the administration had overstepped its authority in imposing them. This initial victory for those challenging the tariffs sent ripples through the business community. Undeterred, the Trump administration appealed the decision to the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, a higher court with jurisdiction over specific types of cases, including those involving international trade. The appeals court, recognizing the potential economic impact, paused the lower court's order, effectively keeping the tariffs in place for now, while the legal challenges continued to unfold. This decision injected further uncertainty into the market. Recognizing the case's significance and the far-reaching implications it held for international trade, the full 11-judge appeals court scheduled an en banc hearing, a rare procedure where all the judges of the court hear the case, signaling the gravity of the situation. Related lawsuits, including a prominent one from the state of California, were consolidated into this main legal fight, streamlining the process and focusing the legal arguments. Given the magnitude of the case and its potential impact, everyone expects the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, will ultimately have the final say. Learning Resources Incorporated, one of the businesses directly affected by the tariffs, tried to fast-track the case to the Supreme Court, hoping for a swift resolution. They cited significant business harm and economic disruption as reasons for immediate intervention. However, the Supreme Court declined to take up the case at that stage, insisting that the appeals process play out fully first, allowing the lower courts to thoroughly examine the legal issues. The result is more waiting, more uncertainty for businesses and consumers alike, and a legal battle that continues to dominate headlines and capture the attention of the nation. Businesses, both large and small, individual states grappling with the economic consequences, and the administration itself are all bracing for a final decision that could fundamentally reshape trade policy and international relations for years to come. The stakes couldn't be higher, with the future of international trade hanging in the balance. The legal battles surrounding these tariffs have created a whirlwind of uncertainty. What does this legal fight mean for the economy? And more importantly, for you, the average consumer and business owner? How will it impact your daily life and financial well-being? The Liberation Day tariffs cast a wide net, hitting imports from numerous U.S. trading partners, with China being a primary target. This has led to significant disruptions in established trade routes and relationships. The tariffs also impacted trade with Mexico and Canada, two of America's closest allies and major trading partners, further complicating the global trade landscape. The court's rulings, with their back-and-forth nature, have thrown billions of dollars in trade into limbo, creating a climate of instability and unpredictability for businesses. For American companies, the uncertainty is proving to be crippling, making it difficult to make sound financial decisions and plan for the future. Strategic planning, accurate pricing, and crucial hiring decisions are all on hold, as businesses struggle to navigate the ever-changing trade environment. When the trade court initially struck down the tariffs, financial markets responded positively, with stocks rallying in anticipation of smoother trade relations. However, when the appeals court stepped in and kept them in place, that initial optimism quickly faded, replaced by renewed concerns about the long-term economic impact. It's important to remember that tariffs are essentially taxes imposed on imported goods, adding to their cost. And ultimately, those increased costs are inevitably passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices at the checkout. This translates to raising prices on a wide range of everyday items, from major appliances to even children's toys, impacting household budgets across the board. The current administration argues that tariffs are a necessary tool to protect American jobs and bolster domestic industries. However, critics contend that they disrupt established global supply chains, increase costs for businesses, and ultimately harm the overall economy. Therefore, the final court decision in this matter will directly and significantly affect prices for consumers. Beyond just prices, the ruling will also have a profound impact on the overall health and stability of the U.S. economy for years to come. For now, businesses and consumers alike are stuck in a costly holding pattern, anxiously awaiting a resolution that will determine the future of trade and the economy. This case is about more than tariffs. It's about presidential power. The Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate trade, but the Trump administration used IEPA to justify unilateral action. IEPA was designed for true national emergencies, not trade deficits. The lower court ruled that using IEPA this way bypasses Congress and upends the separation of powers. If the courts side with the administration, future presidents could impose tariffs for almost any reason. If not, Congress's authority over trade is reaffirmed. The outcome will set a precedent for how much power presidents have over economic policy. That's why legal scholars and politicians are watching so closely. What's next? The full appeals court hears arguments on July 31st. Both sides will debate IEPA's intent and the Constitution's separation of powers. A decision could take weeks or months, but for now, tariffs remain in effect. Small businesses are especially vulnerable, forced to make tough choices amid legal limbo. No matter the outcome, the losing side will likely appeal to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court isn't required to take the case, but most expect it will. A final decision could be a year or more away. Until then, uncertainty rules, the stakes, the future of tariffs, and presidential power in trade. The bottom line? Uncertainty defines this legal saga. A lower court says the tariffs are illegal, a higher court keeps them in place for now. The rules of global trade are being decided by judges, not lawmakers. The next flashpoint, the appeals court's decision after the July 31st hearing. The Supreme Court will likely have the final word, but that could take many months. Until then, tariffs stay, economic disruption continues, and the balance of power hangs in the balance. The only certainty, this legal roller coaster isn't over, and its outcome will shape America's economy and government for years to come.